Good. Come on, I gotta do it again. I realize I can't say morning or afternoon. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the inaugural episode of Script or Screen. My name is Christopher Kitchen, and I will be one of your co-hosts for this new and exciting podcast. With me is my good friend and wonderful co-host, Zach Strockman. Zach, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for asking. Thanks to everyone out there who's taking the time to listen today.
Yes, we appreciate all the listeners, all the friends and family and newcomers, and all the people that just want to hear about what we're going to talk about.
What
Zach,
are we going to talk about?
That is the question of the day. What are we talking? What is script or screen?
I don't know. I wasn't given any information, so
neither. Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily came up with like a good little bio about what script or screen is. But what we can tell you is that script or screen will take a look at movies, television, just kind of visual mediums, and we'll kind of discuss, get in deep. What are the important parts about the media that we watch, we consume? We're specifically interested in movies, TV, anime, music, productions, things that are, incredible.
Media. And I think it's fair to, right up front, let's just say, any opinions expressed on this or any episode, they're ours. We're not telling you what to think about a movie you may or may not like. But we hope you like our opinions.
Yes. Funny enough, so Zach and I have a fun relationship. We've known each other for a good amount of years now.
It's been a while.
It's been like about 5 years, and we've kind of developed this fun back and forth regarding just our various opinions on said movies. And, it's finally time that we put our heads together and, try to entertain and or bore people for the next hour or so.
I think that's a pretty good idea. Speaking of which, what are we even talking about today, Chris?
So, outside of our lovely introductions, there have been rustles and rumors and trailers and redates of the wonderful and lovely Christopher Nolan.
The lesser of the two Nolans.
Yes.
Kidding.
Bill Nolan, the estranged brother, and Joseph Nolan, the high critical success.
Which one's British?
So the funny thing about the Nolan brothers, by the way, I made up this character named Bill Nolan, if you guys couldn't tell. So is it Joseph? No, it's Jonathan.
Jonathan Nolan.
So they're both English, or they were both born in the UK, I believe. And so when they moved to Chicago at whatever ages they were, I think what the story is that Jonathan Nolan was a little embarrassed of his accent. And so he kind of learned how to speak the American tongue, if you will, and just kind of puts on his American accent now for everybody.
Yeah,
versus Christopher Nolan, who's a very proud Englishman.
He speaks with a real thick New York accent. What's up? I'm Jonathan Nolan. Go fuck yourself.
But, funny enough, Christopher Nolan, outside of the release of his new movie coming up, Tenet, I love that he's been in the news lately. I don't know if you've seen it from just these incredible allegations against him. It's not Me Too, guys, and it's not about, his injustices against other cultures, but it's the fact that he does not let people sit on his set. No chairs for anyone.
No water bottles.
No.
He's been accused of being a dictator on set, which I think
a real Stanley Kubrick, if you will.
A lot of directors kind of get this get this heat on them, and I think you and I have had some limited experience on sets, and with productions, and we can both, I think, speak to how sensitive some of these sets can be, and how sometimes it's got to be perfect.
Yeah, I mean, that as an up and coming director, no, but like it's just funny to see kind of like one point is just watching it happen, right? Like let's say you're on set, like watching a director direct versus being a director versus watching a movie made by a director and a whole production team, and like, you know, being a reporter who reports on some of these things. Like the perspectives really vary from time to time. Yeah, like you said, you know, we've had I mean, in the last year I've gotten to work with a number of directors.
That's right. You were up in kind of Sundance.
Jobs. Like I did do a fun. I worked at the director's lab this last summer, but outside of that, you know, I've worked on a couple of commercial sets. Both, you know, I've done PA work. I've done jobs as a grip or as an electrician or a lighting technician. And just kind of seeing how directors work and things of that sort. It's just you kind of, when you're in their shoes, it's a little different, right? Because when it's your movie, you want everything to be a certain way, especially when your movies, you know, have a budget of 150 million or like
just
something
pocket change of that regard. Really.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like I feel like, you know, Christopher Nolan, he's from, I believe he went to film school. Do you have his Wikipedia or anything up?
You know what? I could pull it up. I could tell you.
But it's like he's done short films. He's done, you know, lower budget feature films. You know, he worked his way up to where he's at. I actually have an article here from IndieWire.com about a fun. And so this one article was released June 30th, 2020. By the way, these allegations are years old. I remember when like The Dark Knight was coming out and everybody was talking about, oh, he doesn't let people sit on set and stuff. And, you know, that it were just kind of like rumors, you know, it wasn't a thing. So the fact that it's coming up now in 2020, well, one is it's very telling for the times, right? Because now everything comes up from 10 years ago, being one thing. And then the second thing is just, you know, the fact that his people had to put up like their counterclaim to what happens. So this IndieWire article says, Christopher Nolan does not ban chairs from his movie sets, a spokesperson for the director has confirmed to IndieWire. Social media buzz over an alleged chair ban on Nolan's sets erupted in June 29th after Variety published an Actors on Actors video interview between Anne Hathaway and Hugh Jackman, in which the former complimented Nolan's decision not to allow chairs on set. Hathaway has appeared in Nolan's blockbuster films The Dark Knight Rises and Interstellar, both great movies. For the record, and she says, for the record, the only things, not she, but I think these are what the people, his representatives said. For the record, the only things banned from Christopher Nolan's sets are cell phones, not always successfully, and smoking, very successfully. Nolan's spokesperson, Kelly Bush Novak of ID, maybe that's the publication company or someone who represents him, said in a statement, the chairs Anne was referring to are the director's chairs clustered around the video monitor, allocated on the basis of hierarchy, not physical need. Chris chooses not to use his, but has never banned chairs from set. Cast and crew can sit wherever and whenever, and they frequently do. So, I mean, you know, there you have it, folks.
Well,
debunked.
I think it's common with these kinds of tabloid stories that, you know, you want to make it sound more intense, more sexy, so more people read it. But it's not an uncommon thing to hear about in production. You mentioned Stanley Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick, very notorious for, you know, taking tons and tons of takes.
Oh my God. What is it? Clockwork Orange has like a take. It's one of its scenes is like maybe 40 or 50 takes.
That's wonderful.
Which is insane. It's hours of work. You know, film set work days are like 12-hour days. Imagine doing 12 hours for one shot.
Well, that's yeah, and of course, like there's the infamous stories of the production of The Shining, where he basically verbally assaulted Shelley Duvall into hysteria, so that way she would have the correct level of distraught when Jack Nicholson was going crazy in that movie. And there's an ethical debate to be had there if those things are necessary to bring out the the performances, or if it's the job as the director to find a way to bring out those performances without being abusive. But it doesn't sound like Nolan is getting that bad.
One thing, what is it saying? No publicity is bad publicity. Because really, this allegation is nothing. He's not going against workers' rights or nothing. In reality,
I literally forgot about it until you brought it up.
Yeah, but I've kept the article saved for this moment.
You keep it under your pillow at night.
Exactly. Well, now I can finally delete the tab from my phone. So that's God. Excellent. I'll share a personal anecdote. In my last semester of my film program at school, I shot two shorts with my brother. You are familiar with both of them, Zach. You helped me with one of them.
I believe I did.
And so my brother is not a trained actor, but he was just available for me. And so I was like, excellent, Nicholas. I would love your assistance on being the lead for both of these projects. And on the later project, my final project, I just remember I needed him to just like scream on camera or something, like just show like he was just evidently mad and just upset and everything. And he would just not do it, and he would do it, and it was probably the fakest crap I've ever. It was the worst. It was downright the worst performance ever. However, my brother and I fought about this like for at least an hour. We're like arguing like loudly, and just he's so annoyed with me and everything. During this time, though, I'm still rolling the camera. Lucky for him, I didn't need the diegetic sounds of our conversation. I just needed him to physically get mad. And so, as his brother, I knew exactly how to egg him on. We've shared a bedroom for almost 20 years. So I was just going, getting it, and finally, at the very end, like, he screams at me, and like I get it all on camera, and dude, the performance was like, it was perfect, and I'm like, this was. It was only acceptable only because he was my brother and I could do it with him. And later I told him this, and he's like, "Yeah, you suck."
And then he took his chair away.
But I mean, yeah. So you're right. Things like that are not acceptable. People should not be getting actors that.
I would say having. If
you're a good director, which I'm not.
I think
you may be.
I think you're all right.
Yeah.
There are filmmakers we will talk about on this podcast, not this particular episode, but future episodes that I believe you are better than. So. Okay, that's saying something.
But
for anyone curious, I'm not much in the the directing type. My forte is more on the writing front, which we'll get into later.
Yeah. But I mean, let's get into the Christopher Nolan's kind of career. It starts very. It's almost the 90s, right?
The 90s.
Outside of his short films, his first feature, I believe, is Insomnia.
His first feature is actually the Following.
Oh, Following. Excuse me.
Followed by Memento and then Insomnia.
Dude, so talk about a way to establish your career and just kind of your style of filmmaking. These non-linear stories, these kind of very interesting perspectives. We're not necessarily in this episode focusing on those pivotal moments. I think we're taking it start at the very next step into his career, his introduction to the big budget blockbuster, if you will.
But what
with
big blockbuster, big budget movies could Christopher Nolan have been responsible for?
Well, it wasn't until 2005 that the pre-production at least.
Oh, that's true.
Started in 2003. Like they hired Christopher Nolan and David S. Goyer to just kind of come together to write this Batman Begins. The new introduction of Batman right after, who is it? Burton?
Schumacher. Yeah.
Schumacher. Oh my God! Like, talk about the end of an era for a couple of interesting Batman movies.
Can we just mention right up front how baffling a turn that is? That we, from 1997, you got Batman and Robin, giant cod pieces, nipples on the bat suit, bat credit card.
Yeah.
And in less than a decade, we get it turned around to realistic, dark, very serious Batman that it doesn't have much in the way of even gadgets. He has gadgets, but not like, skis that pop out of his boots and shit.
But in a way, it's like, right before that, you got to look at like superhero movies and other blockbusters that were kind of also helped pave the way for this. Like you look at Spider-Man.
Of course.
In 2001? What is it? 2001?
2002.
Oh yeah, it was post 9/11.
I always remember that because of the original poster. Yep, and the original teaser. He gets the helicopter through the Twin Towers. So I'm always like, okay, 2002 is the year. That's
actually a very sought after teaser poster because they had to pull a lot of them. So like collectors will pay good money for those.
That's awesome.
Which is interesting. But you look at those movies, right? They were kind of like an interesting, they're all still based in more of a reality, like the actual filming New York City, right? So what's the Sam Raimi directed, and I think not produced, but was a line producer was who we know today, Kevin Feige.
That's right.
Right? Like he still worked on a lot of these Marvel movies forever, and so I feel like after seeing almost the bridge between the serious, the modern superhero movie, but like you see the success of Spider-Man and I think its sequel, and then now we are into something, Batman Begins, the reintroduction of Batman with a more modern twist, kind of based in reality and grounded, like in our cities. It's not like built sets and weird towns and just like kind of off-putting lights and everything like with, it's actual.
It's a far cry from the massive gothic city sets that Tim Burton started, or then the neon drenched sets of the Schumacher films. But like real on the ground on
location,
the
if you will. How do you feel about that? Like on location versus like certain sets being built and things like that.
Well, for a more grounded Batman, it definitely fits. I love the Nolan Batman movies, every single one of them. I know Rises has its detractors, and it's not a perfect film by any stretch. Mm-hmm. But they're all so good. And I mean, we're not going to talk about Dark Knight here because what hasn't been said about Dark Knight already. But, Dark Knight's pretty much, as close to a perfect superhero film as you can get. Batman
the pinnacle, right? People say that is like the gold standard for a lot of superhero movies.
I feel like
I would say like right after the original Spider-Mans and I guess maybe Fantastic Fours, that the Nolan the initial movie kind of set its way for the Marvel universe to have such success being grounded in the real world,
and that's crazy if you think about it. Batman Begins comes out right at the same time as Fantastic Four, and Fantastic Four is awful. So like same time period, and you're getting such vastly different movies.
Well, I would say Fantastic. I mean, maybe I like Fantastic Four through nostalgia, because I'll go back and watch the original one and even Silver Surfer, and I'll still, I'll enjoy it on a very surface level, but it doesn't mean as much to me as the Nolan Batman movies. I mean, for me, I watched them. I was a kid almost. That is my Batman, right? Everybody says they have their era of Batman, of
course. So you're a Christian Bale is your favorite Batman?
I mean, I would say, yeah. I look at him and I'm like, dude, that's still Batman for me. Even though I can talk about Batfleck later, but or Ben Affleck's Batman.
We'll get to that episode.
Yeah, but Christian Bale's Batman and Ra's al Ghul, the Joker, Scarecrow, even Carmine Falcone, Bane, Talia al Ghul, all these performances, they kind of speak volumes. It's getting these actors to play these roles, and also this kind of the writing, the stories, and all the themes overarching this trilogy, like meant so much to me growing up. And the more and more I can watch them over and over again, I don't think I'll ever get tired of it. In fact, I did, in doing the research for the episode, obviously I took extensive notes on Batman Begins, but I couldn't just not watch The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises.
You have to.
Funny enough, I used to say I could watch The Dark Knight over and over again, and I never get tired of it. It's not that I got tired of it this time, but I think I enjoyed watching Rises more this time rather than Dark Knight, which was a first for me.
Wow.
I know. And especially, after some of the comments you just made, like, it's not, it might not be a perfect movie, but it's like,
the way people talk about it, you would think it was the worst movie ever made. And it turns out, I mean, when I've heard people talk about it, it's like they speak with, God, that movie's trash. That movie is it's The Godfather Part 3 of this series. I'm like, it's not that bad. It's.
I mean, if I go back and look at it, I feel like I enjoy Batman Begins the least out of all three.
Really?
But that's to also say it's like you have a really great trilogy, like all three movies regardless, and to say that I like one the least doesn't mean at all that it's a bad movie.
Right, yeah.
It's just, to me, I feel like the first two, or the later two have more rewatchability.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like
than the first one.
The first one has a lot of
I'll
table
explain
setting
why
to do.
Yeah, actually, let's kind of get into it. I feel like,
and also I think
the first one.
Before we move in, we're not going to be talking about every Christopher Nolan film, are we?
No, I think there's very specific moments in his big budget career that kind of leading up to Tenet that I feel like are a little more worth highlighting, because now the films that he makes now, I feel like they're different than what he used to make, in the sense of like
absolutely
the scale, the execution,
and I think
like
we're gonna
these are multi-million-dollar films,
yes.
these are blockbusters.
I think we're gonna steer clear of some of his most acclaimed movies, just for the sense that they've already been talked to death. That I mentioned Dark Knight before, but Inception, I don't think we're going to cover Inception, because what hasn't been said about Inception? These movies. I'm not saying we won't get to them maybe in a future episode, but for right now, we have 4 feature films, which we'll get to each one, but 4 feature films that we think represent a good chunk of his career.
Well, I feel like they highlight very special moments and skills that he has as a filmmaker, and also they kind of highlight some of the other people that he's worked with, and as well as like shows what they bring to his table in a way, right? Being his composers, his production designers, his cinematographers. These are all, he uses a lot of the same people. Like many other filmmakers. But yeah, let's begin with Batman Begins. Where do we start? This is the introduction to the new Batman saga, if you will. This is young Bruce Wayne, played by Christian Bale, Alfred Pennyworth. That's his last name, right?
Yes.
Played by the lovely, brilliant Michael Caine.
We got Rachel Dawes.
That was a bad impression. Rachel Dawes, played by...
In this movie...
I'm sorry?
In this movie, she's played by... Katie Holmes. You're right.
That's great. Yeah. I was going to say,
Dark Knight.
It's not Maggie Gyllenhaal.
No, that's for Dark Knight. But then, of course, I feel Katie like Holmes. The unsung hero of these movies... maybe not the unsung hero.
Cillian Murphy?
No, I was going to say Gary Oldman. Maybe he's not unsung. Maybe I'm just crazy.
Gary Oldman is a treasure. Morgan Freeman as Lucius Fox, another treasure. He actually has a lot of good chemistry with Christian Bale in these movies. Like the same kind of chemistry as Michael Caine's Alfred. I feel like they kind of bring out, I don't know what it is, but the actors, or I guess I know they're great actors. The performances come out. I know we were talking about, comedy the other day, and comedy can be very subjective, but I've always found that the best comedy comes out in character chemistry, kind of the way that people bounce off each other.
Oh, absolutely.
And their lines. Earlier on in this film, there's actually a moment that it makes me sad it was kind of cut out of this movie. so we also take a look at the scripts of these films. We were able to find the Batman Begins script via scriptslug.com, guys. They offer a variety. I have a huge library of a lot of scripts. So I would, just type in Batman Begins, search it up. You'll get a copy there. It's the original. I believe it's one of the original drafts written by Goyer alone before Nolan was brought on to help kind of restructure the story, as he was also the director. So after the explosions of the League of Shadows training camp, if you will, their summer getaway home in the mountains,
right?
You get introduced to Alfred again, meeting Bruce like on this kind of tarmac, the plane's landing, and it says, you've been gone a while, sir. But in the script, I believe it's on pages 41 to 42, the interaction is that Bruce kind of stumbles into a bar and uses a phone to call Alfred, to call him and tell him where he's at and everything. And it's hilarious because you get this interaction, that you get kind of later on in the movie, and it kind of readdresses their relationship as they're older. Because, before Bruce had left, he was just kind of like, I'm not staying long, Alfred. I'm just here to see the trial of my parents. Like, he was very angsty in a way. He was 20-something years old, 20. He was still in school,
of course,
at Princeton or something. But now it's like he's older, and you kind of see like this great, there's a more of a respect for each other. I realize why it's not in the movie, though. I feel like as we get to see more scenes with Bruce and Alfred, they continue to build up off of each other till the end of the movie. It's not like straightforward. They kind of punch you with the jokes and everything. It happens gradually, and so
right.
It was nice to read that in retrospect. But just another fun moment. But I understand why it wasn't in the film. So that was a little bit.
One thing I want to talk about with this movie, and that I really appreciate, and and we could talk probably ad nauseum about the idea that Batman does not kill. And I know in this movie there's a lot of people who say, oh, but he tells Ducard, I don't have to save you, and then lets him, or Ra's al Ghul, excuse me, that I don't have to save you, and then dips from the train. And can that be construed as him playing an active role in Raz's death? Yes.
I don't know if that'd hold up in court.
Yeah, but like I feel like this movie. So okay, I'm gonna we're gonna jump really far ahead in DC films. A lot of people.
Spoilers, by the way.
Spoilers. Yeah. If we're talking about these movies in depth, but it is pretty well known that at the end of Man of Steel, which a lot of people have always said is the Batman Begins of the new Superman film continuity, it was the gritty reboot retelling of Superman, for better or worse.
That is giving it too much credit, in my opinion.
Yeah, I didn't mean for quality, but for just general aesthetic and tone. But Superman at the end of that movie snaps Zod's neck, kills him. And a lot of people say, a lot of people took issue with that because, kind of like Batman, Superman, he doesn't kill people, and so that was very jarring and not cool for a lot of fans. Kind of sent the wrong message. But then the film's got its supporters who say, well, that was at that moment, Superman, Clark Kent, learned that he shouldn't kill, right? He went too far and realized, and that's the point. That's the point where he says, "Okay, I won't do that again. I don't want to go there."
Yeah.
Let's bring it back to Batman Begins. One of the greatest parts I love about this movie is that Bruce, before he heads off to go train with the League of Shadows, he does contemplate killing Joe Chill, which I don't know. Is he called Joe? Is he called Joe Chill in this?
Yeah, he's Joe Chill.
All right, so he contemplates killing. He has a gun, and he is actively considering killing Joe Chill, and in the end he chooses, not in the end of the movie, but in the end of his moral conundrum, he chooses not to do it. He discards the gun, and he, no pun intended, rises above it. And I feel like that always, to me, was such a powerful thing that, it's important that Batman doesn't kill. I know there's a lot of people who say, I don't give a crap, I don't care if Batman kills or not. But it's so core to his character. It's so core to the idea of who he is, because he's been there. He has been in that alleyway, in Crime Alley, the victim of that kind of violence.
Yeah.
And for him to come, get to the edge and choose not to jump in, I think speaks way more volumes than something in Man of Steel where he kills somebody and then only then realizes it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
So I really have to commend this movie for its restraint. I know when it comes to some of the other movies, his kill count is a little high. I don't know if he kills anyone in Rises, but
no, not him, or I guess maybe not.
He stops.
Oh, I feel like the only. I feel like the only other real time that you could say that Batman's kind of killed someone is when he pushed Harvey Dent off of the thing to catch Jim Gordon Jr.
Yeah.
And I guess in that way, yeah, he killed him.
I always did think it was funny in Rises when he tells Catwoman, like, hey, no killing people, we're not going to kill anyone, and then just totally is fine with her blasting Bane to death at the end. But anyway,
I don't think he had time to figure that out. The whole island was going to go nuclear.
It's okay. The ends justify the means. But no, I like that this movie really it played to that. It brought the character to the brink and allowed him to come out a better person, not a perfect person, but stronger for his struggle.
I feel like the true hero behind him having that ideology goes to Ra's al Ghul in this film, played by Liam Neeson,
Oscar Schindler himself.
Qui-Gon Jinn, if you will, Aslan from Narnia,
Taken Man.
They're Taken Man, who can't jump over a fence normally.
Yeah, right. He can. It just takes like 20 shots to do
20 different cuts and everything. Yeah, it's ridiculous. But the thing, I loved reading the script. I don't know about you. I read it from front to end, and I just felt like, or the Goyer edition of the script. Goyer is definitely a DC, or at least a Batman fanboy, the way he writes about it. Like, there were a lot of things, obviously they're not in the film, just little nods. Like Harvey Dent was mentioned in this script. Mm-hmm. There were more Scarecrow scenes and just other things, and it was just. But he took such care with making sure that Ra's al Ghul's trainings and teachings and discussions with Bruce in the beginning and even in the end of the film just kind of resonate throughout its entirety. I remember watching it. I think I remember watching it like for the very first time in the theater. Like, I didn't even kind of realize that like Ra's al Ghul was so important until, after the fact. And then years later, I watch it again and I'm like, dude, like, how could you miss this? This was such this is a great antagonist in a way. Because he's offering him a hand, a helping hand. Like he's a mentor, a guiding character. And teaching what Batman's ideology is going to be kind of growing up. Obviously he's trying to teach him to be like a killer ninja, in a way, but like the core values of, you have to be a symbol, you have to stand up for more than just your parents. Like, you can't let your fear and your anger just kind of get the best of you. It wasn't your fault that your parents died. It was your father's. Like I would say the movie and the script are very similar in that, right? That they got most of the speech and everything right together. But in the script, I felt like it was a little more romantic between them. Just the time and the description, just kind of between their actions. And by the way, I don't know, maybe it's both Nolan and Goyer, but the choreography written in the script, they go through like, oh, Batman does a left kick punch to the side, it's caught or something. I'm not really good with martial arts terms, but like the fact that every piece of choreography seems almost written in its entirety I would say is pretty impressive. In a way, it's kind of hard to imagine that, and we'll talk about action lines.
Yeah,
with a later film that
I'll say
I want to discuss.
From a writing perspective, writing action sucks. In any regard. I think the one thing I think you and I often have a laugh about, and we can get into this in vastly more detail another time. But Django Unchained, the script refers to the one particular fight scene in that movie as everyone jumps on Django.
Oh yeah, and it turns out to be the whole bloodbath after Django shoots, or Django, excuse me, Helen Candy dies.
Yeah,
Schultz. Yeah,
spoilers. But but yeah, so it's funny because you have some writers who are very meticulous about the details and how they really paint a picture of what's going on, and then you have we'll figure it out.
Yeah, for the most part, it's just. Like for me, I'm going through kind of experiments, trainings, if you will, right now, just trying to write certain specific actions. And there's a scene that I wrote, and it just feels like I'm spending maybe 2 pages writing this very simple, like how to build something. And, in reality, someone could just write, he builds it, taking that same approach.
The Frankenstein approach.
Yeah, or something. But because, at least it's different for novels, but like scripts, people don't read scripts. People watch movies,
right?
So it's like, yeah, you'll have shots of something being built or something like that. But like the fact that they took the time to write these kinds of things, it's a testament to like the amount of effort and time that they put into crafting this movie. And this is a solid movie, but I feel like the themes are excellent, right?
Themes, talking specifically, I'm gonna segue there because themes in this movie, the big one. I always feel, everyone talks about is fear. Fear is like one of the biggest things. Fear is what leads Bruce to wanting to leave the theater of the opera. Yeah. It's what leads to his parents being killed.
Yeah.
And
it's also confronting fear.
Confronting fear.
What that looks like, him being in the cave like for the first time and kind of standing and embracing the bats, or even the training, like. He gets the lack of a better phrase, like the heroin blowed into his face.
Right.
The drug agent, and then he has to, deal with people attacking him, and he has to combat that and like kind of be large and in charge and take command and really like figure his stuff out.
And how he chooses the symbol of a bat because it's something he fears, and he wants to channel that fear into his crime fighting. He wants to make the criminals fear what he feared, or have that same sense. It's awesome. I think it's head and shoulders above what I think a lot of writing for this genre has kind of shown.
I feel like. What it easily does is, or it kind of attaches itself to, is when going back to Ra's al Ghul as the antagonist, the true antagonist in the movie. Like, it's funny how both of these characters, he taught him how to utilize fear, or to it as an advantage, and
right.
And now they're kind of playing at the opposite spectrums of this theme too. Like, he's using fear to destroy Gotham, while Batman, Bruce Wayne, uses this sense that he's created, this personality. He uses fear to kind of incite fear amongst the criminals who seek to ruin Gotham and its people.
Yeah.
He uses fear for justice, if you will. And I feel like that's just that's really like kind of the cherry on the whipped cream on the ice cream.
Well, I think the cherry, or maybe the sprinkles on top of that cherry, would be if there was maybe say. A minor antagonist that also played into the theme. Oh wait, Scarecrow. Scarecrow, whose whole thing is manipulating people's fears. Can I say, for one, I just think it's rad. I love, like, the look of Scarecrow, where he's got the the burlap sack over his face, but just the whole way his brand of villainy plays into the themes of the movie.
Yeah.
And if I can say, the visuals of his drug, of the people going through the effects of his drug, especially towards the end when it's coming out of the sewers, some fantastic imagery.
Yeah.
Especially with him on horseback. That stuff's I think wild. We don't get that stuff later in the series, and so like I really enjoy that.
So I like how Scarecrow's kind of used as this like not faux villain, right? But it's like he's very much the surface level of the idea of fear, right? And then you have the Ducard type, the Ra's al Ghul, that's like the true. It's just what a good way to kind of like psych people out in a way. Maybe it's predictable too, because if you actually listen to the dialogue, like he's always talking about the man I work for is coming here. So there's always like this kind of hype or like this build up to a bigger villain,
right?
But just the fact that we got the three villain archetype, if you will, or like the three. You had Carmine Falcone, you had Scarecrow, and you also had Ra's al Ghul. What is it? And in the Dark Knight, you have Joker, you have Harvey Dent, and then I wouldn't say Maroni, but I would say you would have.
I would say the movies tend to do small villain, big villain.
Yeah.
So you have Scarecrow, Ra's al Ghul, Two-Face Joker.
And what a great way to kind of utilize your the entire roster of villains that Batman has kind of had over the years.
The rogues gallery,
which you have to though Bob Kane, the creator of Batman, and a lot of other writers have contributed to just bad guys in general. The fact that a Bruce Timm bad guy made it into a live action Batman movie, Carmine Falcone, written by Bruce Timm in the animated series, that's like a high five, by the way, a nod, like a great way.
Shout out to Kevin Conroy, my personal favorite Batman, but.
He is a fantastic Batman. I will say so.
Also,
the Arkham games and the animated series and everything would be nothing without him.
Of course, yeah. And also shout out to little Jack Gleason in this movie. Joffrey Baratheon. I feel like,
oh man,
for that's probably
a kid
something.
Who had such a short acting career.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I say shout out, like it's probably well documented that he's in this movie, but yeah, not a very short filmography.
Yeah, I mean, but still, like he's a good actor. Like even he had one or two lines, but like he played the role of the sad boy very well. I'll give him that.
And then,
but yeah, I feel like, and then Game of Thrones. I feel like this movie was an excellent kind of piece or a beginner for this Batman series, and it was just missing one thing. I personally feel like that the other two movies built upon, but I believe it was absent purely because of the fact that this was a brand new film.
What was that?
And in a way, it's like you don't necessarily know the sense of scale and spectacle and scalability. You see, this film was shot in Chicago, I believe, and it utilized just specific areas, but some of the wide shots and the extenses. Or just kind of the shots that they did use weren't as grand. And, you look at Christopher Nolan's career, he hadn't done many grand looking things yet, though this was a large budget movie. So the budget of Batman Begins in 2004 was $150 million. And this is according to Wikipedia. So assuming that this number wasn't adjusted for inflation, if it was that it's in 2020, it's $198 million. It's almost $200 million. And for a $200 million movie, usually you see like a lot of ultra wide shots and just kind of like these really these incredible images. Not that this movie didn't have incredible images. Like you see the mountains in the beginning, and I don't believe those were CGI. I think those are kind of practical.
I think it's practical.
Yeah, or at least it looked practical. But you go into movies like The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, he really utilizes the city of Chicago and Rises with I believe it's Pittsburgh. is where that one's shot. It, like, he really, like, the opening shot of The Dark Knight is just like them, zooming across, ziplining across buildings, and all those things, and that was real. Those are, and flipping trucks and doing all these things, like, that is like a grand effect.
Well, I think what if you look at his career, before Batman Begins, he had Insomnia, he had Memento, he had Following. This is the first time I feel like he has been given a very, very big thing, and this is him kind of stretching his muscles and seeing, checking his reach and seeing what he can do before he really takes flight with some of his bigger movies, which I think we should probably get to talking about real fast before we move on. Favorite scene in the film?
Oh, in this one?
In Batman Begins.
In Batman Begins,
if you don't have one,
I have one. I feel like my favorite scene is kind of cavalier Batman telling Lucius Fox that he wants to go spelunking, cave diving, and he's looking for all this weaponry, and he's like, oh god, look at this guy. It's I don't know. There's something about
the scenes with
this
Lucius,
cavalier, smug Batman. It's just fantastic.
The scenes with Lucius in all three movies are wonderful. It's
because Morgan Freeman's an incredible actor.
Absolutely. For me, I think I've told you this probably an unhealthy amount of times, but my favorite scene in the movie is towards the end, page of the script, starting on page 147. I think it's 147. Yep, the escalation talk. I think it is central to this particular series. I think it is an awesome, it is a good question about Batman as an idea more than as a person of, crime is only ever, getting more dangerous. Things are only ever going to get worse. And you are inviting challenge by changing the rules. And obviously it leads to what is, I feel, an absolutely fantastic teaser in just the Joker card. Here's a guy, flair for the theatric, here leaves a calling card.
Talk about the biggest kind of tease to have that at the end of the movie, and then for us to wait 2 to 3 years for that was maybe the longest 2 to 3 years of my life at that time. Watching that in the theater, dude, the next movie's gonna have the Joker. No way.
I remember,
that's so awesome.
I remember being in the theater, seeing that, and even I remember myself thinking, they don't even have to do Joker. That was awesome. If we never got a second movie, that's just it is a terrific way to end the movie. It is a terrific way to just show, if that had been the only one we got, if this had been the only movie we got of this continuity, what a way to go out. Just, we enough just in the Batman mythos that it just opens the world up. Where it's gonna go, or you think you do until you see The Dark Knight and it blows you out of the water. But then after Batman Begins, he had another movie, didn't he?
Dude, The Prestige. Not, I don't think, one of his most notable movies. Maybe to his fans, yes, but I feel like no one.
It flies under the radar.
Talks about this.
It flies under the radar.
It does. Because you think of Nolan, you think Batman. You think Interstellar. You think Dunkirk. And now people think of. I feel like Batman or Inception. Why did I say that first? But The Prestige one, released the year after. Batman Begins. I would say shot within a couple of months after.
Probably.
With a budget of almost a quarter, or if not half, it's only $40 million in 2006. An estimated $51 million in 2020, adjusted for inflation. And this, to me, The Prestige is almost a masterclass in terms of writing.
Oh, absolutely.
Like a smaller scale movie, but it's still in a period piece. It still has a lot of production elements, like between the costumes and the set, or like the locations that they use. Like everything was just incredibly looking and textured. But like it's the story, the dialogue, and the characters that mean so much more into this. And more to me actually than Batman as a character and his arc and things like that.
I'll tell you, this might.
I don't know. What are your thoughts? How do you feel about this movie?
Oh well. Let me let you in on a little secret. This might be my favorite Christopher Nolan film. There, I said it. I love this movie.
Why is it your favorite Christopher Nolan movie?
I love this movie to death. I think it is immaculately paced. I think it is written with such detail, with such care, that I don't think Christopher Nolan has done better since. He's come close.
So
he's come
I don't
close.
want to go ahead and give Christopher and Jonathan Nolan, because they did co-write the movie, but it is based off of the novel, which was written by Christopher Priest.
Yes.
So this also acts as an adaptation. Like this adaptation of this book, I have not read this book personally. I am transported, Zach. I am in the movie. Like I never really like to think of like being in it or taken out of movies or put into them. But I understand that argument though. But like I'm invested in this movie. The idea that this movie is about magicians and tricks and escapades, if you will, between like learning tricks and the Prestige and the three. And not only does it mirror the 3-act story or like structure, but also the 3 acts of a magician's like performance, or of its trick. I mean, this, and really, it does a really great job of breadcrumbing and paying off everything in the end. Like I don't think I've ever been more entertained by a writer, and even reading the script in general, like it's great. Oh,
yeah,
I don't know. What else? What else is there?
I think this movie's just fantastic. I love it. Starts off much in the same way that Angier's wife gets killed. It drops you into the deep end and lets you figure it out as it goes. It locks you in. Sorry.
This is another one of his non-linear films. Like though Batman had a few like flashbacks and everything, this movie kind of really strings you along in the memento cycle of just like which point in time are you in, like, because it's like there's journal readings and then,
it's very,
there's just a lot of really interesting stuff.
What I think is pretty fantastic is that never once does it become confusing. I think because there are so many layers through which the story is told, because you have why am I blanking on his name? Borden.
Played by Christian Bale.
Yeah, played by Christian Bale. You have him in prison, reading the journal written by Angier, played by Hugh Jackman, in the United States, looking for Nikola Tesla, reading the journal written by Borden, going back to their time as...
Who's reading the newspaper clipping that was being read by Cutter, played by Michael Caine, who's reading the screenplay read by Michael Caine. No, I'm just kidding. but it does. You're right. It has a lot of, I don't want to say vignettes, but it has like a lot of like kind of like one-upsmanship, which is the vein of the movie.
It's just all about rivalry. It is the most fascinating pissing contest I have ever seen. You know what this movie's about, Chris? It's about obsession.
Yeah.
It is about the absolute darkest and deepest places a person will go to have what they want when they are so consumed by it.
Mm-hmm. Don't be confused between obsession and commitment, Zach, because, as you know, the commitment to the trick, to the prestige is what is the most incredible. I feel like, we're talking about favorite scenes in the last movie. My favorite scene in this movie is when Cutter tells both Angier and Borden to go to this old man's performance.
Yeah, he's got a really racist name. What's his name again?
I think I wrote it down.
I'm kidding. It's not a racist name. The movie's just takes place.
No need to say it. It's just, you go in and they have to figure out how this gentleman does this trick. And at the end, they kind of they meet with each other after the show to watch the gentleman into his carriage. He's like, that's the trick,
Chung Ling Soo.
Yeah, full commitment to his performance. He lives as the old man, which is so telling of just kind of the end of this movie. I'm like, and Angier kind of puts it off okay, guy. And it then comes back to it where Cutter tells Angier, the only way you can get a double and do this trick of the disappearing man, where one enters through one door on one end of the stage and then you come out the opposite end of the stage, is if you had a brother. He's like, I'm not going to find a brother anywhere.
Right.
And I mean, and that's it, living a half-life with your twin brother, all my God, what brilliance.
By the way, Hugh Jackman playing his double, fantastic. God. With the teeth, it's so funny.
Yeah.
But that's what I love about this movie. It's I feel like it's a movie that's always one step ahead of you or two steps ahead of you. The first line in the script, the first line in the movie is, "Are you watching closely?" It asks you to pay attention, to engage with what's going on a level that I feel like a lot of movies just don't live up to. I think there is great emotion. I think the tricks and how they are shown are fantastic. The performances are phenomenal. But you know what this movie also has going for it that not a lot of movies can claim? This movie's got David Bowie.
This is an interesting point, because I thought, I love David Bowie. I love seeing him. I don't want to say I love him. I couldn't tell you all the songs in the world that he's made. I know you could. I personally, he has this physical aesthetic of I know who you are. You look great. Do your thing. And I'm a fan of that. How do you feel about David Bowie being in this film? And Andy Serkis, by the way.
Andy Serkis
as his partner.
Doing an awesome accent, by the way. It was a New York accent on him.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
I would trust him with any accent.
Oh, for sure. Well, playing a chimpanzee.
Yeah.
But David Bowie, this is something I had brought up to you. I do wonder if, because you only hear about Nikola Tesla, and then Angier goes to Colorado Springs to find him, and they, he meets Andy Serkis's character, and there's a lot of talk about Nikola Tesla. He's not here right now. He's too busy. And finally, when you get to see him, it's friggin' David Bowie. Nikola Tesla. I was not alive at the time that Nikola Tesla was alive. You might not know that. But I have to wonder if he was as much a celebrity of the time, in the sense that we consider David Bowie now, or at least when he was alive, was David Bowie cast because of who he is and kind of the association we as an audience would have with who he is, saying, wow, that's David Bowie. Am I supposed to transcribe how I feel about David Bowie onto Tesla? Is Tesla meant to be that kind of mysterious, famous, celebrity type of the time?
You take a look at historically, Tesla was funny enough. Tesla was involved in a great rivalry with Thomas Edison. Another great inventor or stealer of a time.
Who gets name dropped a lot in this movie.
Who does, which is like kind of fun in terms of world building. Like, you know, they're including real elements of his fame, and so Thomas Edison, you know, was a very big name at the time, you know, and this is what mid or late 19th century, I believe. Or is this the film takes place like 1899 or something? What year is it?
I could tell you.
Something of the sort.
A while ago.
Regardless, yeah. Regardless, so Edison, being the kind of person that he was, would very much badmouth Tesla and all of his inventions, and, you know, just because, you know, Tesla was his biggest opponent and was trying to do everything, you know, he was doing, or if not doing it better, and almost for free or at no cost to people. And Edison, being the capitalist that he is, did not like that and brought his great things and his American attitude with him everywhere, and shoved Tesla, who was but a European man, kind of out the door. You know, well, I say European. I would say, you know, in that part of the earth.
To American sensibilities, at least.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, to those that knew Tesla and that, you know, actually got to know him as a person and as an inventor, that, you know, he could be trusted. But like to the public eye, you know, Tesla offered, at least in the movie, shows that to really like electrify Colorado Springs, and, you know, and with payback that he would just kind of do his own thing in the mountain. They're like, yeah, cool, great. Like, you're giving us electricity? That's awesome. You know, versus, you know, that's why later in the movie you see that Edison's people, you know, like burn down his facility. Like that rivalry is still very much real, and he has to suffer those consequences. People do not want to see these inventions that in real life. They are unsafe. They're almost scary looking, but, you know, what people fear the most is fear itself. You know?
Well, I think you know, that speaks a lot to the line from Angier in the movie where he says, you know, people come to our shows because they want to believe, they want to be swept away. If they believed the things they were seeing, they wouldn't clap. They'd run in fear.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, after I looked it up, Tesla was born in the Austrian Empire, which is now modern day Croatia, or at least in his birthplace, and he did pass away in New York, 1943.
Okay.
He was born in 1856. So
interesting.
We got our time frame right, I would
All
say.
Right. Cool. But yeah, I think Prestige, it's a wonderful film. I think it keeps you guessing until the very end, and yeah, I really love this film. I guess if you want, we can move on, but first, do you have a favorite scene from The Prestige? I think you.
Yeah, it was the one I mentioned earlier, where like kind of them being, you know, Cutter was telling them, like, I want both of you to go check out this
Chung Ling Soo.
Yeah, this guy in his trick, and their discussion afterward, like, oh, what a great breadcrumb there. I do have a second favorite scene.
That's funny. I have two favorite scenes.
This one's more of like oh my god. It's when Borden had kind of snuck into Angier's show with the cage and the bird, and there's the woman there. And he was sabotaging the show by crushing the cage onto the woman's hands and kind of did that whole thing. That was disgusting and terrible, and I felt that pain in my body, but it was also super entertaining just to see, like, dude, like, these guys, like, they really went after each other.
Oh, yeah.
You know, one shot off the fingers of the other. You know, he killed his wife. Like, oh, you stole my girlfriend. You know, like, talk about a great bidding rivalry.
That's funny, because one of my favorite scenes also is a Borden sabotaging Angier scene, but it is the big Borden sabotaging Angier scene. The one where he finds out about Angier's double, gets him to talk, and then drops him under the stage in the middle of his act. I love that scene. I think it is such a power move. I think it is so well put together. And it's fantastic. And my other is the scene when Borden does the bird trick for the little boy, because it is a microcosm.
Oh, that was sweet.
It is both the both a miniature version of Borden's Transported Man and Angier's Transported Man. Borden's because the little boy wants to know where the bird's brother is. And then Angier's because he is killing the bird and replacing it with a lookalike. God. It's fantastic.
This movie's just too clever to comprehend. And if you haven't seen The Prestige, please rent it, buy it, do anything you want. This is probably, I would agree. This might be one of his best works.
It definitely is. But moving on, we're gonna go into.
Well, let's fast forward in Nolan's career a little bit. You know, like after this film, you know, he subsequently this one did rather well. You know, making, I believe it's made its budget back. It made double its budget, like $100 million. So $140 million in 2020. And then he finishes the Dark Knight trilogy. We really get to see how grand and these incredible kind of views and everything that Christopher Nolan has made. We get Inception. These are just like mind-blowing. People are raving about the movies. And then in 2014, we get almost his biggest movie yet, Interstellar.
Now,
before you go 147 pages.
157. I'm looking at the script right now.
157. 169 minutes.
Yeah,
that's
it's a beefy boy. And I'm gonna slap a disclaimer right now. I like Interstellar a lot. I think Interstellar, and this might be controversial, is a very good film. It has its moments though that I do take issue with, and we'll get into it because as you know, I took extensive notes, and
as did I. You see, so for me, this. All right, so if we look on the last 10 years of movies, like the 2010s era, this was in my top 10 list.
This might have been in mine. I don't remember.
This was maybe number 2 or number 3 on that list. I think maybe number 3. This movie meant so much to me personally, and also like just watching it in general. I would feel like I would say I'm pretty biased to it.
That's okay.
Looking at it, like I'm as trying to look at it as objectively as possible, and then going back to looking at how it made me feel like emotionally, like as an audience member, and then kind of like dissecting it and seeing bits. Like I feel like this, the fact that this is actually I believe his lowest rated movie of all, like his biggest ones it's his lowest rated big movie, at like a 70-something% on Rotten Tomatoes. Funny enough. And anything lower than that isn't necessarily, I feel, like a Christopher Nolan like directed and written work. I think it's just maybe some producer roles.
Right.
I don't know if you saw this, but recently Interstellar actually went back to theaters in, I believe, the Chinese market, or in a couple of markets. But in the China box office, it made an additional $2.84 million. Oh,
that's awesome.
This comes to us from an article that came out August 2nd on Forbes.com. So, which is kind of incredible that, how many years has it been? Maybe
6 years.
8 years. Not 8 years. 6 years, like, still making great money.
Yeah, that's great. Let me tell you what in Inception. Interstellar is a really awesome, really hard science, very good spacefaring story that struggles a bit with its beginning and doesn't 100% stick the landing, at least for me. And I could talk all day about it, but there's a few things, because basically from the point the ship takes off into space until the point when they are on their way to Dr. Mann's planet, I have very little issue with this movie. And even before that and after, I don't have like, nothing in the movie makes me not want to watch it, because first of all, we're talking about Matthew McConaughey coming directly off of Dallas Buyers Club and True Detective.
Yeah.
This is peak McConaissance. And he brings it. This is an extremely emotional performance for him.
Yeah.
Meme-worthy, in fact. And I don't think any one actor, with maybe the exception of one, I don't think any actor does a bad job in this film. There's one actor in particular I find extremely distracting, but and you might agree with me on this. But if we're talking spoilers, it's Matt Damon.
So I believe, when we were writing notes for this movie, you brought up a point about David Bowie playing Nikola Tesla in the last movie. It was, what a surprise. And then come to watch this movie, Matt Damon shows up later in the movie. What a surprise. It's Matt freaking Damon. I'm not too distracted by him. I don't tend to get distracted by certain actors. It's almost, I know this is a little bit of a stretch, but you watch Deadpool 2.
Yeah.
And then Brad Pitt gets maybe 1 second on screen. You're like, is that Brad Pitt?
I mean, but that's a joke. I feel is a joke.
Thing is, that's Deadpool, this is not.
It's definitely one of those things where you're like, at least for me, when I was first watching the movie and then rewatching it for this, where I go Matt Damon's a tremendous actor. He is he's very good, and he's good in this movie. But when you first see him, it is such a kind of Matt Damon's in this, because he didn't get billing at all. I think he was insistent that he did not get billing at all, as to not have people question, hey, they said Matt Damon's in this, where is he?
Also, I feel like it wasn't to distract from him doing The Martian almost around the same time.
Yeah.
Funny enough, which Jessica Chastain also stars in.
That's true, yep.
What an incredible movie.
What, The Martian?
I am a big fan of The Martian. Space movies are my forte.
Nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Comedy, The Martian. Yeah, it's I love that movie.
Yeah,
but I can't say, like I said, I like Interstellar a lot. I think the stuff in space is incredible. Some of the best spectacle I've ever seen. I love that the science is built on real science, things that you can actually theories.
Yeah,
it
was theory that they developed at the same time of the movie, like that they developed for actual science practice. Right?
Yeah,
or you say practice. Theory isn't necessarily practice, but it's it's just commonly accepted in a way.
It's wonderful.
Yeah,
but it's getting to that stuff where I feel like the movie does stumble a bit. We've talked about this before. There is this weird disparity between how Cooper, Matthew McConaughey's character, treats and helps his daughter Murph versus his son Tom. He fights for Murph's education to the point that he gets her suspended, but he accepts Tom being a farmer because I guess there's just no helping it, even though he knows that being a farmer is basically kind of like a death sentence, because you're gonna live the rest of your life just doing this one thing, and in an environment that is plagued with dust storms and it's just this this terrible existence. It's something they're actively trying to fix. He is comforting to Murph at times where he is oddly cold with Tom, and of course, my big thing is at the end when they're like, "Oh, welcome to Cooper Station." They're like, "Oh, they named a thing after me," and he finds out that his daughter is actually very old now, and he gets to see her. And we don't even hear "Oh, is Tom alive too?" Nothing. Which I get it. I think I had posited the theory that they're trying to make Murph more sympathetic because Tom is, toward the end of the movie, kind of a minor antagonist. But it felt so weird to me that such, you know, coldness was being put toward one child, where a bunch of warmth was being funneled onto the other. I realize I feel like he could have had one kid, and it would have been fine and a lot less distracting for me. I don't know if you wanna throw your 2 cents into it.
I mean, on just a general basis, like I do disagree with some of the things you say, but rather that like I see the roles differently. Like I feel like I don't see a disparity as much as just a contrast to the relationships that they both have, and I take a look at the perspectives of like, okay, when developing the characters, like what is a dad's relationship with his son at his son's age, and what is his relationship with his daughter at that age, and then on top of that, like you stated the school aspect, right? Like, I like how you say like kind of Murph's education, like he's fighting for it, and it's because it's the education that he taught her with, like this the moon landing and this kind of propaganda that the state has put in play.
Pause right there. How awesome is the whole stuff about the education in this movie?
Oh man, because dude, it's the world I don't want to live in, but I very much see it is a reflection of kind of a world we sort of live in now. Kind of like a 1984 effect. That's like there's kind of a telling of the future.
This alternate, this alternative information movement. That I feel a lot of people engage in now. Yeah, definitely got a little bit of that going on. It's interesting because in that sense, it's like they're doing it so that way people won't have aspirations to go to space.
Yeah, like I mean, as Dr. Brand Sr. says later, like there is no public funding, like that nobody supports it. They want food on the table, or as the teacher, Murph's teacher says, like we don't need people in the stars, like
we need them here
on Earth, which is funny. Well, not funny, but it's like it's just. I do not want to live in that world where people don't believe in the moon landing. I refuse.
We got to start changing the world now. But anyway, going back to what you were saying about Cooper and
I just feel like because there is a defense that was made on Cooper's part to fight for his son as well, and though we don't get to see, maybe Cooper's relationship with his son during some of the earlier parts of the movie, we are given instances that there is an importance between the relationship because the son still depends so much on the dad to the point where like he's still talking to his dad maybe after 10-20 years on Earth.
That's a good
of
point.
Not having him sending him messages, and it's like, I don't know about you, but like when I was 15 or 16, I didn't want to talk to my parents. I was like, man, parents suck. I'm going to hang out with my friends or like do things. But it's like at the times when I didn't have my parents, I felt like I was asking for them or wanted to hear from them. My dad even specifically, like I call my dad every day almost. Not to say I don't call my mom every day, but it's like, there was a lot of time that I spent away from him, and it's like that relationship means a lot to me. And like growing up, and it even comes to a point where it's like he gets so hurt and distraught by the kind of world that builds around him. As Tom grows older, his son passes away, like his family's kind of going through hard times, like, and he realizes, all right, yeah, maybe I'm just kind of talking to you for therapy or something, and I should kind of give up on you, and I'm, this is goodbye. Like it kind of sucks. I mean, it's to me, it really touches home to me. Like, funny enough,
there's some depth there to be sure.
Watching. I know not many people are fans of Casey Affleck, but I feel like he has a lot of different performances. I was introduced to him through more of a comedic performance in the Ocean series, and even Good Will Hunting, and then watching him do a little more serious roles like Manchester by the Sea, and kind of seeing, I guess that came after Interstellar, but like in the roles that he does where he kind of gets a little more like there's just something about the way he looks when he's a little distraught. And in his performances, that it breaks my heart.
So I'll give it to you. There's some depth there, and maybe I'm being needlessly nitpicky when it comes to to that. I generally, when I'm watching a movie, one of the things that really, in my mind, kind of solidifies something as being like absolutely fantastic versus just really good or just fine or decent. It's how often am I so engaged with the movie that those little things don't bother me, or don't stay in my mind longer than they should, because is the scene overall, it's a bit inconsequential. It just, he does fight for both kids, but when he's like, hey, Tom's a smart kid, you should do whatever you can to ensure that he goes to a good school. The principal, the teacher, they're both like, nah, dude, this isn't gonna happen, and he just kind of goes, yeah, okay. But then with Murph, he's like, that's my daughter, you son of a bitch,
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where a lot of this movie, I can sit back, I can just absorb it, it's fantastic. But it's one of the things where I'm just like, oh, that's weird, it kind of took me out of it. There's a lot of things.
I'll tell you what, this movie does a couple of things where it's like, It answers its questions at its own pace, because some questions get answered almost immediately, and then some questions take 2.5 hours to answer.
There's a question that never gets answered. What's their beer made out of?
Dude,
all they have is corn. All they have is corn.
So I actually looked it up, corn beer, and apparently there's something popular in South America, I believe is what the article. It's called chicha, and it's corn beer.
Sweet.
Or beer made of corn. And then funny enough, you have a scene where he has like a glass of what looks like whiskey, and what's the only whiskey made of corn? It's bourbon. It has to be. And knowing Matthew McConaughey, it's probably a wild turkey.
Yeah, right.
So, but that's a fun tidbits about this movie too. Just like kind of like how they play on this kind of alternative reality that we live in. Well, actually, who knows if it could be reality? It's technically supposed to be like the 2040s.
Yeah, right.
So we'll see.
But looking at like different things, like the fact that, and I know this all kind of ties into the cyclical nature of like when he goes into the Tesseract at the end, but like he gets the coordinates to NASA. And NASA has basically been under his nose the whole time. It's just, little contrivances that I think are a little annoying. Like, they didn't know Cooper was even there until he showed up on their doorstep. And then they're like, we need you, dude. I feel like there's these little things where it doesn't kill the movie for me. It doesn't make it a bad film. But I definitely find myself going like, really?
I mean, I this movie is not a I feel like there's maybe only one big thing that really needs a little more addressing. I did some external reading, and I think I found something to kind of address that in the end. But like things like that, movies aren't necessarily allowed coincidences. Like, what is it? Every movie gets one coincidence, right? I don't want to subscribe to that thought or that ideology, because I think they explain it enough to where I'm like, yeah, okay, like I'm still invested in the story. Like, I want to see them go to space. I don't care. Oh, it's not that I don't care, but it's like it hasn't taken me out to that point. I really feel like it's like you say, like this movie it lifts off when they enter space. Like it really, like the beginning, like the first quarter, the first half was like excellent. It was good. Like it was entertaining, and now it's like now you're in space. Now the as I like to look at it, like the ode to every all the defining space movies kind of comes to life, and the ode to science as well, like what astronauts represent and everything. Like this movie in itself is an ode to 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh, for sure.
Film. It's oh man, I love it.
I love the stuff in space. The last maybe not the last, but another small thing I will say that just kind of it's not a movie killer. It's that this movie has a lot, and it's necessary, a lot of exposition, a lot of technical know-how that they need to convey to the audience, so that way the audience knows it. And I'm talking like things like relativity with the gravity around Gargantua. The whole idea of a wormhole, and they do that the whole thing of like sticking a pencil through a piece of paper that every other science-y show has ever done.
Yeah.
But it annoys me when, like, okay, Cooper's up in space. He's been selected for the mission. He is basically in charge. But in the lead up to them going into space, he accurately identifies a wormhole when he sees it. But when they're there, he then needs to have the wormhole explained to him because it needs to be explained to the audience. And I always just I wonder if there wasn't a better way this could have been explained to the point that it didn't just walk back this thing the character already said. It's minor, I'm nitpicking, but it definitely it makes me go like, well, you should know this.
You look at a scene like that. I think the first interactions when they're in like the board meeting room, and he's like, "Is that a wormhole?"
Right.
And they're like, "Yep," and we don't know how it got there, but it is one. And so they're on the ship. They're in what do they call it? The Lazarus ship. There's a name for it. I forget the name. It had a cool name. But I don't know if necessarily he was definitely the pilot and the commander, but I like to think, astronauts do have come from specific backgrounds, and you have physicists, biologists, the pilot and the engineer of the ship. Like, if he doesn't know every exact detail, that's believable. Are the audience, though, this is the good point, like, are the audience going to know that about, if they're not really that into space, but they're just kind of watching the movie? Like, maybe not, like, I can, so the exposition, like, I think it works with it and against it, depending on what kind of audience member you are. Like, are you informed about astronauts and space travel? Are you just generally interested, or you're kind of walking into this blind?
Right. I mean, the exposition it's fine so long as, I just felt like it in certain areas, it walks back a bit of like, it makes me then go like, I have to stop and go, well, hold on, wait, I thought he did know about wormholes, and now I'm reevaluating the character. But I mean, once we get into space, you meet TARS, they start bantering and stuff. We're talking about levels of honesty and humor and stuff, and it's really good stuff. They go down to that first planet that was which was the first planet? That was Dr.
It was the one where we lost Doyle there.
Dr. Miller's planet. And that whole thing is just one big, just...
Well, that movie does a great job in providing you, all right, obviously Cooper knows how to fly and do some incredible moves. Right. Number one.
I need to feel the air.
And then also, like, he's really trying to make sure that they can execute the mission. I feel like at this point he's still kind of focused on the mission, while also keeping in mind relativity.
Yeah, he's trying to be...
saying that? Relativity. Excuse me. God, that word.
He's trying to be like efficient with the time that they have,
and their fuel and everything, and as much as possible. Well, I'll tell you what, he in the story, it's funny that he's being a little inconsiderate to Anne Hathaway's character, Dr. Brand Jr., or however you want to call her, because they have that argument about like, we needed the data. Is like, we didn't have time, we had to leave, and now we lost Doyle, and all that argument. But that also isn't to say that, going back a little bit, Matthew McConaughey does have a bit of knowledge. He does talk about Newton's theories and just kind of like about their plan and everything. So he has like a knowledge base, or he does have a focus. Later it becomes evident in what his focus really is and what it isn't. If it's about his family back on Earth, or is it truly about the mission? And I like Matthew McConaughey's character. I feel like does a really good job giving him a good contrast. Like, they have the same ideals, but they're both kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum in a way, kind of like the kind of fight between, going back to Batman, Ra's al Ghul and Batman as a character. Though, you don't have all that introduction to man. It's just he's already kind of an established character without ever giving him a face.
I hate that name so much. I hate it so much. Like, Christopher Nolan is not if there's one thing I can say about his
blame
writing,
Jonathan Nolan for that name.
Okay, but like, if there's one thing I can say about the writing, is it's when it needs to be subtle, it's subtle. It is so integral. His name is a man. Oh my god.
With a second N.
Oh right, okay, but
but I mean, you go through this movie, and then it's really, I think, when we get to the point of the the self-sacrifice, right? Incredible movements and scenes, and then we get into the Tesseract, right? Like, the Tesseract, we are in.
Which, can I say, I think it's so cool. That's a set. That is not
like the way that, like, the production.
Yes, that is
this.
That was not, maybe there was some digital effects put in, but like, that was actually Matthew McConaughey suspended in a set. Like, I just think that's the coolest thing ever.
Well, I mean, you've seen the footage of, like, some of these other sets that they built. Like, so the set they built in, like, The Dark Knight Rises, of like the airplane kind of dangling in the air and then kind of like having to go up and down it, and then you go into Inception, and it's like spinning, the rotating hallway, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt's in there with the other stunt actor, and like they're really really flipping on the walls and doing that stuff.
Inception had a lot of really cool ones, because they also had the hotel lobby that leans to the side. But we'll talk about Inception. Another day, maybe. But like, so Interstellar being his biggest movie yet, like they really did go all out with like a lot of the, the practicality of these scenes and things like this. And I realized this scene is maybe both one of the most enjoyable visually, but also, I feel like it's where you lose some people, right? I feel like it's where you lost certain critics. It's where you lost a lot of kind of people in the story, just because of like it. I think you said earlier, it kind of defeats the purpose of some of the reasoning, or some of like the story elements. I don't mind the Tesseract, honestly. I think when you read about it in the script, which I'm the first one to say that I don't care what it says in the script. It's all about what's on the screen, what you are watching, because not everyone's going to be sitting like us with the script and open. I love the way the Tesseract is described in the script, about how he's falling through the time of himself, basically. I don't mind it. The stuff where I feel, at least from my critical perspective, where it starts to really falter, is in that, like, you have a lot of very hard science things, and then it comes down to, and I realize it's kind of the theme of the movie, that through time and space, Cooper's love transcends the very limits of our understanding, in that he's able to reach back through the Tesseract and communicate with Murph. But like, the whole idea that of quantifiable love, I feel like Nolan took a big stick and just whacked himself in the knee as he was nearing the finish line on this movie. Not hard, he could still walk, but I think like it definitely had me scratching my head of like, really, this is where we're taking it. This, it felt like a cop-out. It felt like a cop-out of a movie that was like, we're going to use hard science to solve this problem of what happens to humanity, and in the end, it's love. Love Which
So
I know the movie likes to say, and this is gonna sound really cold, but this is gonna sound very robotic. But even though this movie wants to say that love is a quantifiable thing, that it is more than just a chemical in the brain. At the end of the day, that is what it is, and so for a movie that
it's adding a kind of a new definition for love, and going by its like
I would just
regular overtly, like it's putting in a lot more introspection.
I would just say that for a movie that dealt with facts so firmly, to the point that I'm pretty sure, when I remember when Gravity came out, it got kind of like shit on by a lot of people in the science community because it was not very accurate to the science and physics it showed.
But the Academy loved it. Isn't that funny how that, a movie that scientists don't love, it's like gets all the love in the world by, let's say, the Hollywood circles. But a movie like this, Interstellar, I don't even think was nominated. It was maybe nominated for a single award. It was very much not one of Nolan's most critical acclaimed movies, I don't think. Or kind of looking back on it, which is kind of sad, but scientists love it because of how real, because I also feel like it's because they had a chance to kind of put their thumbprint on it as well, to really help craft with Christopher Nolan and the producers, really try to make it as real as possible.
Right.
So maybe there's a sense of bias right there.
I just think that you have a movie that is so good with its science and so on point, and then at the end of Act 2, beginning of Act 3, start dealing in very abstract terms, which I know it plays into the theme and the overall plot toward the end of the movie. It just felt like the movie didn't stick the landing. It kind of went hey, here's our problem. The world's dying and humanity's running out of resources and we need to find someplace else. How are we going to do that? And then it just went, But but it's not a bad movie. I can't in any good conscience say that when I watch the movie the emotions don't work on me, because they do. The performances are fantastic. The special effects are incredible. It is a good film. I am a little annoyed that this desperate struggle for humanity's survival results in a fist fight on an ice planet. But I don't hate Interstellar as much as I've been complaining about it for the past forever. I don't hate it. I really like it. It's just, I feel like with Christopher Nolan, my expectation is so sky high that anything that doesn't meet it, I have to,
I would say that's your fault for getting your expectations subverted.
He expertly subverted my expectations by making an inferior film. But anyway, I'm realizing we're moving in close to 2 hours here. But there's one more movie we are going to talk about. But I
had a final thought on Interstellar that I did want to read it. Through my research, I found a Reddit post.
Okay.
From a user, Teddy Perkins 95, and it talks about 2001: A Space Odyssey and Interstellar. They are us, in this idea of evolution. And I'll just kind of skip to the summary. Higher beings, monolith, creates inspiration. And this inspiration creates primitive beings to higher beings that we see in Interstellar. So I just feel like that kind of, it's a lovely thing to see the inspiration to this film kind of also being brought around. And it's like, you look at 2001, you think of this monolith, or the monkeys to the monolith, and this floating baby at the end of space, right? And what do these things mean? And then you think of us as humans, and then this idea that we evolve into these things that help humans in the past, or something like that. It's just, in a way, it's this one big kind of cycle of just callback and thanks Stanley and thanks Christopher, and shaking hands and good days and top hats and all that fun stuff.
There's a footprint there. You can tell, an impression left behind that I think Nolan really plays into. It's a good movie. I like Interstellar, even if it's not perfect. I accept that it's still a good movie.
I would say my favorite scene. Oh, unless you want to have another thought. If we want to skip to the favorite scene parts, is Cooper's self-sacrifice and his jump into the black hole, or Gargantua, if you will, and like heading toward the Tesseract. That entire kind of that a moment where he leaves Anne Hathaway and says, Newton's law, gotta go, and very emotional. Self-sacrifice, very, that resonates a lot. Like, that's good scene. I like it a lot. And Tars being found later on is also great.
Tars is just awesome in general. But for me, favorite scene is pretty much after they get back from... As soon as the door opens when they've gotten back from Miller's planet, and you have... what's the character's name? The guy who stays on the ship.
The gentleman. Give me 1 second. I have it written down. Doyle is the
Doyle's
the
dead.
Miller's planet.
Anyway, but he it's when the doors open, they see he is aged considerably. Mm-hmm. It's been like 20-something years.
Romley is his name.
Romley, thank you. Romley is like, he's like, I tried to sleep a little bit, but then I didn't want to miss anything. And just the idea that he has been alone on this ship for 20-something years, waiting for them. And then that's, I feel, such a mind-blowing moment. It kind of like really sells the impact, the stakes of what's happened.
Relativity, man.
And then
it'll get you.
And then follow that up immediately with the emotional gut punch of him watching the videos from Tom and Murph, and the performance from McConaughey is amazing.
The cinematographer of this film, Hoyt van Hoytema, actually does an interesting thing during that scene. Is there's a hint of soft focus on McConaughey's face as he's actually crying, and it kind of just highlights a lot of the light and the figures around him as well. But there's only a single point of focus on his face, and it's around his eyes, and it's just dude, it's heartbreaking, and it's like your eyes kind of drawn to it in a way, and it's like it lasts like a second, but it's like oh dude, skillful stuff right there.
It's wonderful. Now, after Interstellar, Nolan had one more film, and then we're caught up.
He did it. In a way, a very different movie than anything he's done before.
Absolutely.
That being Dunkirk.
Dunkirk.
With a script of only 82... Dunkirk, yeah, exactly. A script of only 82 pages. Runtime of 106 minutes, and an estimated budget between 100 and 150 million. Wow. That is insane.
Now this was
82 pages.
This was interesting because you and I, and I believe some of our friends went to go see this it was shown in 70 millimeter.
Oh yeah, we did. We were lucky enough to live next to one of the screenings back when the world was normal, and you could go to screenings, especially 70 millimeter ones, which was great when it was fixed. Which, if you remember,
can I say, shout out to the dude in the theater, the guy who worked at the theater, because when the screen was blurry, I had to be like, hey, can you tell the guy in the booth to just focus the lens because it's blurry, and he's like, oh, it's film, so I don't think we can do that, and I'm like, buddy.
Yeah, it's like, go talk to the projectionist, please, gentlemen, sir. What's unfortunate is that Tenet, being announced to have 70 millimeter and even 35 millimeter showings, I believe that same theater had dates already set for 70 millimeter showings that I think we had already planned on going out and seeing. Which, by the way, if you ever get the opportunity to see a movie in 70 or 35, or you see that a movie is playing in 70 and 30 or 35, go see it. It is a fun experience that's very different from just the digital. look carefully,
it's fantastic.
but go see it. Yeah.
But Dunkirk.
So, I mean, I read this entire script from beginning to end as just a thought of what does an 82-page feature-length script with no real main characters, and like it's not necessarily about character arcs and things like that look like, you know? And oh my god, action line after action line after action line after. And this script had so much by its first 15 pages. I just felt like, did I really only just read 15 pages? And I feel like I'm already maybe halfway through the fucking movie. I was really, really just, it's a testament to one, Christopher Nolan writing choreography and things, you know, very specific actions. Like, he need those small details in a script like this that, you know, I think he said he wrote it in 1992 or something like that. Like, and it's very hard to pitch something like this to a studio, you know, like this was a story about these events. And I mean, it focused on very specific things about this time of the war in World War II. You know, what was it? The shores of Dunkirk is France, I believe.
Yep.
And the English Channel, and like just kind of like, you know, the familiarity between everybody and even the civilians, between like the sounds of the aircrafts, their engines, and just like what these bombs look like, these torpedoes going through water, just all these vignettes and these stories that kind of all interconnect in this one evacuation battle, what you want to call it. It's just it's not like any other war film I've seen personally, especially for this time.
So what's interesting, talking about other war films, I feel that this movie gets a really unfair rap because I think it has goals very different compared to other war films. You know, talking even just with, like, say, World War II films, I feel like a lot of times the emphasis is on the battles and the horrors of the visceral horror of war. You know, the seeing your comrades being gunned down in front of you. The violence and the lengths to which people will go, you know, when their life is on the line. One of my favorite movies is Saving Private Ryan. So, I mean, you know, I love those kinds of movies. This movie, though, I feel is wholly uninterested in that kind of story.
Yeah.
It's a horror of war, but a horror of being backed into a corner with no guarantee that you're going to make it out.
Yeah.
And it's a tension, which I feel that tension is owed in part to Hans Zimmer's score. Which is just this ticking time bomb of a music piece that it doesn't let up, and it's just always building and building in the background, and I'd have to, you know, really pay more attention the next time, but it never feels like it's ending, and it just adds to this heightened sense of tension that, you know, like at any minute it could be over.
Mm-hmm.
And when
I feel like I also, you know, want to talk about the sound design in this entire film. You know, when you think about it, like every noise, it's all works together with the score, right? Like this movie, it just never made me feel like, you know, with that sense of tension, it just never made you feel safe.
No, absolutely not.
Like
even when they're on
really,
the ship,
like
even when they're on the ship having tea, having toast and jam. No, I
like how one of the criticisms for this film was its authenticity, and a lot of like veterans and people who went to see it, their main complaint was it's a bit too loud. You know, for all the things that happen, but I mean, like, just that just sense of like, you know, you talk, you think about all the noises, all the creaks, all the shots, and everything that, like, the anticipation of the bombs.
Yes.
Of the bombers and the dive bombers and these the Spitfire planes and just like kind of the shots and when the planes go into the water versus when they hear the water seeping into the ship and the torpedo exploding, just the immense fear that must have been in the hearts of these people. And also you have to shout out all the thousands of background actors and everybody kind of putting on these performances and all these kind of, like, whoever the assistant directors are, which were likely the wranglers of these people or whatever,
Right.
KPAs or whoever they had really like handle the talent and all the background like that must have been one hell of a job.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And to get them all to react the proper way. I love it in the trailer. It's like they're all looking up,
yes,
like kind of one by one. Oh my God! Talk about an incredible moment
coming in. Yeah. Oh, I was about to say it was what hooked me to want to see this film, was that one shot from the trailer.
Yeah.
But I feel like this movie.
I do want to give a shout out to Lee Smith, who was the he edited the film and won for editing, and then the sound mixer as well, who I'm just trying to confirm his name here, Richard King. Oh my God!
Well done, lads.
Excellent job.
I feel like this movie, again, I feel like people go to see a war film and they have some expectations of what that war film is going to show. And the fact that this movie didn't have these massive battles and it didn't have people laying on the beaches with their guts spilling out, and it didn't have prolonged gunfights and real savage, wartime horrors. I do think that soured a lot of people.
It did have really good, like a good amount of spectacle, though.
Oh,
like the spectacle of the views of some of what these soldiers experienced.
The other thing I think that works against this film, not that it is a bad thing, but that I think it takes for the average audience goer, moviegoer, a bit of time to get used to, is the format in which it is told, which is 3 separate stories told across 3 different periods or amounts of time.
Yeah.
And by the time, I know at least the first time I saw it, was by the time I figured out exactly how it worked, I was like, oh, okay. Second time watching it, I was like, oh, I told this flows fine. If there's
one thing, that's a common theme in all of Christopher Nolan's writing, it's just he likes to toy with the time and the time perceived in all of his movies, and the pace at which events happen and things of the sort. So I mean, I feel like it wasn't. If you're familiar with his work, it's not too much to ask for.
No,
from an audience, and it's in fact, like, I don't even necessarily think that I noticed it like to a point. I just feel like I watched it and I was like, oh, all right, the plane flew over and it's landing, like, oh, and then we have to go back. It's land, air, and sea, right? You're getting the perspectives of each of these, these places, or these effects in Dunkirk. And that I feel like is just an incredible, or just, it's a testament to like his kind of storytelling style, if you will. I felt like overall very different from everything that Nolan has done generally.
Yeah.
It really. It didn't. It was very, for me. It was unexpected after the fact. Like I wasn't sure what to do with myself after watching the movie. I didn't necessarily find myself needing to ponder it. Maybe I Googled the Battle of Dunkirk, the evacuation, if you will. It made me think, why, in a sense. Like, I'm glad this story was told, but I don't know if it did it for me in terms of, like, traditional storytelling. I like that it took a risk and did something different, and I think it highlighted more of the story and the efforts of everybody involved rather than just like kind of made up characters, though the characters that were portrayed were made up for the story within the events.
Right.
But I mean, like, kind of true characters.
Of course.
But outside of all that, it was still, I mean, people look at this as some of his best work, like this, who is
I
it?
would say.
Quentin Tarantino says that it's his favorite Nolan film. like, funny enough. But
yeah, I think the movie is underappreciated and not lacking for any of Nolan's talent. I think it is a very engrossing film, and I just as his most recent film. I think it speaks to a somewhat of a maturity in his storytelling.
Yeah.
And this is kind of now we're kind of going back with the next film, which we'll briefly touch on. We're kind of going back to his high concept sci-fi stuff, so we'll see how Dunkirk, how doing a historical war drama has evolved his art.
Yeah. I mean, I look forward to what is next, and though we do not have a definitive date for viewing in the USA at this current time, what is the time of this recording is August 9th. Hopefully we'll get the full experience, and I kind of do have high hopes for it. I feel like there's no way it'll be bad. Like I liked Interstellar. Like I loved Interstellar.
I like
so
Interstellar too.
So to me, if that's the bar for me, like I feel like I'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, it would be. I would be impressed if Tenet somehow came out bad. We'll actually talk about Tenet, but did you? I know I talked about my favorite scene from Dunkirk. Did you have a particular favorite?
Oh, dude, when the plane is coming down at the end because Tom Hardy's character kind of shot the last dive bomber while having no fuel. Dude, that. Oh man, because he knows exactly what's going to happen to him after he lands and everything.
Heroism,
and just his face and everything, and just the German army coming up to him and taking him, like that scene itself. And also I guess there's one more. It is on the boat after one of the Spitfires landed in the water, and he was kind of jamming himself and getting out.
Mm-hmm.
I remember his the captain's son of the ship, he was like, you don't know, there was no parachute, we don't know if he's alive, and out of sheer desperation, Mr. Dawson's like, he could be, we don't know, and just the look on his face is just like, also desperation. He's just hoping that he's okay, and it's because he's reminded of his son, and it's kind of revealed later that like his son was one of you lot, like he was also a fighter, and he flew hurricanes, and dude, like that impressive acting.
Mark Rylance, tremendous actor.
Dude, like that broke my heart a little bit. But yeah, those two scenes I'd say were my favorite.
Nice. Here we've I think two things we were gonna kind of wrap this whole thing up with. One was our best writing, direction, cinematography, music overall of the four we spoke about.
Yeah.
And then talking about Tenet. So which would you rather do first?
I feel like let's wrap this whole our four films that we discussed.
All right.
So what would you say for you is the best writing?
Best writing. Hold on, I have my list.
In all these ones.
My Nolan bests. Writing for me, The Prestige.
I agree. It is probably one of the best written films I've ever seen. The dialogue is incredible. The story is great. It's tight, and that movie's just focused all on its story and its characters. And it lives within a cool world, but it's like, and there's great production design and everything. But its characters and its dialogue and just the chemistry between everybody. It's key. It is the best.
All right. So how about direction?
This one was different for me. I felt like, for me, this had to probably go to Dunkirk.
Same.
I felt like this movie was too grand in a way. Like, just the fact that you're dealing with thousands of extras, and also you're dealing with like actual planes flying and putting cameras on these things, and like, also trying to get performances out of people and just really trying to capture certain events. Dunkirk is it. I think he was nominated for an Academy Award.
Yes, he was
for Dunkirk. Yeah, man, that thing was awesome. It was incredible. This next, I guess, best is kind of a battle between his two, co-workers, really. Wally Pfister and Hoyt van Hoytema. Wally Pfister's done all of his films pretty much since the beginning of his career. He did the Dark Knight trilogy. He did The Prestige, Memento, and Insomnia and Inception. Hoyt van Hoytema did Interstellar, Dunkirk, and is also doing Tenet, right?
Right.
And then other films he's done is Her, Ad Astra, and Spectre,
nice.
The James Bond film. So, I mean, for you, who does the better cinematography work in which movie?
I would say for me it's Hoyt van Hoytema and in Interstellar. As much as I am not in love with that movie's writing, the cinematography in that movie is masterful.
I would agree 100%. So what, are we in the same belief for the three of these?
We're 3 out of 4.
I mean, and I should also say, like, Ad Astra, beautiful looking movie. I got to watch it on my 4K TV
Brad
HDR.
Astra.
Oh, it looked awesome. Story was interesting. It looked incredible. And Her is actually one of my favorite movies of the last decade as well.
That's a very good film.
It is. So best music, it goes to the one man Hans Zimmer.
Yep.
But in which movie?
I'll let you go first.
It's Dunkirk.
Yeah, it's Dunkirk.
Yeah.
Super Soldier. It's
Dunkirk.
What is it? Uber Soldier, Super Soldier. Fantastic composition.
I'll tell you what, my number 2 is tied between Batman Begins though and Interstellar.
Batman Begins has some fantastic music in it. Obviously, the big one is Molasses.
Yeah. Well, it's the first Batman score that people look at since the famous one.
Yeah,
I can't think of the composed. Yeah, Danny Elfman composition. And it's funny. I talked to my brother about it. He hates the Hans Zimmer composition. Yeah, he's like, it has no taste. It's nothing. It is garbage. And I'm like, who? Yeah, get out of here.
Right.
He's very critical of it. At a conversation we had a while ago.
I mean, the Danny Elfman scores. It's fun.
It's classic.
It basically became like so much so that they reused it for Justice League, which
was cool and dumb in both regards.
We'll get there one day.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess it comes to best overall. Your favorite of those 4 movies.
For me, best overall. It's I said it before. It's Prestige. Prestige for me. I think it's my favorite movie that he's made. It might be tied. It might be tied with
the Dark Knight or Inception.
Yeah. But Prestige. It's so, just the performances, the writing, the special effects, the pacing. It is just. It is fantastic. I don't have the words for it.
I mean, it's pretty good. I will stick to my guns, however. I will say my favorite overall, best overall for me, is Interstellar. I just feel like maybe, though it lacks story, some story elements to some members of the audience, with me, the majority of the story resonated. It looks incredible. It sounds awesome. And the performances were amazing.
I will allow that opinion. No, I think it's great.
But I guess perfect. Well, I guess when we talk about our hopes for Tenet, I
hope it doesn't suck.
I hope it doesn't suck, being the first and foremost. The second one, I guess the only other thing, the story looks interesting. I like it. The performances, though, are what's going to be most important for me. After Black Klansman, I fell in love with John David Washington.
Oh yeah,
dude. Black Klansman, incredible performance, and just kind of going into he's a great actor. I can't wait to see what he does next. Also, I haven't seen Good Time or any of the more recent. What's his name? I was going to call him Edward.
Robert Pattinson.
I was going to call him Edward Cullen.
Let me tell you something.
Robert Pattinson movies. So the fact that he's going to be the next Batman, I need to catch up on Lighthouse and Good Time. And
Good Time is fantastic. The Safdie brothers are really cool filmmakers. Robert Pattinson, great in it. You know what? I was just looking up Tenet, not Tenant, and something interesting. If you pull up the IMDb, and this might be something you've already keyed into, but looking at the cast and crew, everybody, so like Robert Pattinson, his character's name is Neil. John David Washington is being credited as the protagonist.
Fun. I wonder if his character gets a name.
I wonder if his identity is going to be a mystery at all. But the one thing...
I mean, that wouldn't be the worst thing.
The one thing I am very curious about, and I mean, this is obvious, but what, you know, what's the science fiction-y thing? What is happening with these like time reversing things? Because they haven't.
The best part about it is that the fact that it has to do with time, it's just, again, Christopher Nolan's favorite thing is just time in general.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I'm sure, like, trust me, before I saw Inception, I didn't fully understand how everything worked, but it's like, at least I went in and I was like, okay, I know they're screwing around with dreams, and it's about going into dreams and doing stuff. I still don't know what Tenet is really about.
Yeah.
And that both excites me and worries me. Because it excites me because I'm like, it could be anything. But at the same time, I'm like, it almost feels like they don't know how to market it. But
yeah.
Okay, maybe I should say, the marketing on it's been good. But at no point am I like, yep, I totally get, I see what's happening. People have said to me, people who aren't as into films as you or I, and I've spoken to them, I'd say, oh, you know, Tenet looks good, and they're like, Tenet, what's that about? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know, but it looks good.
You know, looking through this IMDb, you notice that I only see maybe 2 collaborators in here. Michael Caine, obviously,
right?
But no
Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah, Kenneth Branagh. He was in Dunkirk. I keep saying Dunkirk. That's just the way easiest it comes to mind for me.
That's okay.
But I know Tom Hardy, no Joseph Gordon-Levitt, no, I feel like there's one more, I guess, I don't want to say longtime collaborator. Oh, Cillian Murphy.
Yeah.
I don't see him on this
busy.
list. Maybe they will.
He's been busy with Peaky Blinders, I think. I don't know. I've never watched the show.
My brother-in-law is obsessed with that show.
I've heard it's good. I've never watched it.
Yeah, I have neither. He always quotes it to me, though, and sends me funny Peaky Blinders memes on Instagram.
Nice.
So.
It's one thing I love. It's a meme without context, but...
Well, there's, like, context, right?
Right.
But anyways, I want to thank you, Zach, for sharing this lovely conversation. This, of course, has been our inaugural episode of Script or Screen. You know, we hope you've enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you all if you've listened for this long and put up with our dulcet tones. Then we appreciate your ears. And
absolutely.
And if you have anything that you think you'd like to hear us babble about, hit us up. Do you have some social medias you want to plug?
Well, Script or Screen.
Oh, yeah.
Become available with on Instagram at Script or Screen, at Twitter at Script or Screen, and on Facebook.com/Script or Screen.
Wow, hard to remember.
I know, right? It's kind of incredible. We get the trifecta. And, it should be available on all podcast platforms at the time of release. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. No definitive schedule yet, but keep an eye and ear out for the next episode.
Yep, we will be working on it, get it to you guys as soon as possible.
And I think that's pretty much it. Thank you so much. I'd like to give a special shout out to our editor, Billy Blesser, and our music intro and outro by the lovely Nick B, 1BB. He actually hasn't told me how he wants to be credited. I should have asked him. So
thank you guys both so much for making this whole thing a reality.
Yes. And we will see you guys next time.
Bye.